Is it why is that?
It's live. Live.
Misha, will start, huh?
Yeah, we can start, sir.
Yeah.
So let's share my screen, sir.
I'll just introduce this thing.
Yeah, please. Yeah. How many people are there, sir, so far?
So far, I think there will be 20-25.
Only, sir?
No, 20-25. Hello. Good evening to all of you. Hello. Good evening to all the participants. Anybody can respond so that. Yeah, fine. So, warm welcome to the second session of 3-day national webinar series on technologies transforming global supply chain. And today's session is on supply chain analytics, very important session. I think yesterday's session you have seen technologies and innovations in supply chain. You have seen Mr. Ramesh has specifically told in the yesterday's session that supply chain challenges, the last unit, that is the last segment, supply chain challenges, given the lack of synchronization and lack of real-time data sharing and the irregularities of stock levels, are unable to maintain safety stocks, and then lack of flexibility in the operations and price volatility and production line imbalance. All these challenges are there. So to overcome all these challenges, now the supply chain analytics is very important. So the what is the organization ability to understand the data and how they are going to take different kinds of decisions based on the data that is there, past data, and how do you predict into future. This is very important, and most of the organizations now employing different kinds of supply chain solutions, supply chain analytics solutions in terms of procurement visibility or procurement visibility analytics, or production analytics and distribution analytics and logistics analytics. All different kinds of business process are connected here. So this is going to be very, very important. Of course, you have many softwares are available, Oracle, IBM, and SAP. So many softwares are available. But how do you bring in transparency of operations? That's very important. So in this backdrop, now today's speaker is Dr. Pramod Kumar Mishra is with us to inspire the importance of the supply chain analytics. So now I am very happy to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Dr. Pramod Kumar Mishra is my colleague in the School of Management Studies, University of Hyderabad. Dr. Pramod Kumar Mishra is alumnus of NIT Roorkela and University of Hyderabad. He did his PG from Roorkela and PhD from University of Hyderabad. He has been working as assistant professor in the area of operations management and quantitative techniques in the school. Prior to joining this University of Hyderabad, he has worked as a faculty at Getam School of International Business, Getam University, Visakhapatnam. Dr. Mishra has also worked as postdoctoral fellow at IIM Bangalore about 3 years. And he has published many papers, almost 20 research papers in various national and international journals. And some of them are indexed, listed in Scopus, ESA, ADBC, ABDC, and IEEE Digital Export databases. And he has presented research papers at national and international conferences in India and abroad. Dr. Mishra has conducted several training programs in machine learning, optimization techniques, research methodology, and supply chain management, total quality management, and business excellence models, and so on and so forth for the faculty members and industry executives and research scholars. As a part of his outreach activities, he has taught at NIFT Hyderabad, National Institute of Fashion Technology, and NIRD, Hyderabad, and Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, that is Kolkata, and many prestigious institutions in India. He has been guest faculty, as a guest faculty, delivered many talks in various workshops and training programs all over the country. He is presently teaching supply chain analytics to the business MBA students for the last so many years. So he is an expert in that area, supply chain analytics, and today we are going to listen to Dr. Pramod Kumar Mishra. So over to Mishra.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. I could see around 50 people, around 50 participants so far, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
They are good to add.
Okay, so let us start the discussion. Time is about an hour, and so 15-20 minutes we have earmarked for question and answer. So hopefully this session will give you at least some direction in the area of supply chain and supply chain analytics. Okay. So without taking much time, let us get into the action. I'm just sharing my screen. Time is too short. We can talk for about 3 hours or maybe 5 hours, but when it comes to 1 hour, things are much more difficult. Hopefully the screen is visible.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome everyone to this presentation on the supply chain analytics. Okay, so I'll be giving you some kind of direction how you can probably proceed with the topic, and within 1 hour it's not possible to demonstrate many things. I'll just give you the orientation. Maybe afterwards you can just practice yourself or maybe take it further as far as your area is concerned. And since certain things are purely academic, so you may find some academic flavor in those discussions. Okay, so let's see. The topic is basically the supply chain analytics. If you analyze the topic itself, it has two contents especially. One is the supply chain part, that is the domain, and the second one is the analytics part. Okay, so supply chain is the domain, or you can say logistics management, operations management, okay, quality management. So all those we can probably integrate into the topic, because yesterday there was a question whether it covers. I could see that particular video whether it covers marketing, finance, and so on. So in fact, people who are directly or indirectly involved in fulfilling a customer request can be a part of the supply chain. Okay, so it's not only the operations or maybe the distribution side of it or the production side of it are basically part of it. So anyone who directly or indirectly contributes for fulfilling the customer request is very much the part of the supply chain, right? So this is one part, and the second part is basically the analytics. So analytics, the data-driven decision making. The data-driven decision making. If I say in a very strict sense, this is also not something very new. Okay, it is not something very new. We had statistics, for last several years, or maybe you can say 50-60 years or so. Then we had optimization, that is also very much part of the production and the operations management. Then the computational power, though it has increased over the last 10 years, it was also very much there 10 years back or so. So if you put together all this, you have a holistic understanding of the topic. Most of the times it has been seen that people who are good in analytics or good in numbers, they are not very clear with respect to the domain. Okay, And other point in time, we see people who are good at the domain knowledge, but they don't have much analytical skills. Okay, so these are the two things very much essential for this particular topic. So you can probably think about it, where additional things or additional knowledge may be acquired to fulfill certain task or accomplish a particular task. Okay, so whatever it is, whether it is supply chain analytics or any other analytics, okay, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics, very much part of the supply chain analytics. So what happens? Sir, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
So there is a disconnection. So
No
you are able
problem.
to hear me properly?
Yeah, fine. It is fine.
Okay.
Voice is clear.
Okay. My voice is clear. Okay, sir. Okay, thank you. So this is one thing. So the core thing behind any analytics, being a science student, we had a paper called Logic. People maybe also from arts or commerce background, but they also might have studied the paper called Logic. So that is very, very crucial, right? That is very, very crucial, because analytics, you give the data, you use a particular software, you get some output out of it, right? But behind that is the logic that really matters. So first of all, logical thinking, then analytics. So analytics without any logical thinking may be dangerous. So you have to be very, very careful about it. Okay, let's move further. Broadly, these are the few topics or few areas I'll be covering. You can see that a little bit of domain, that is the supply chain strategies, then the network design options, uncertainties related issues, and how it can impact the network. Then one important aspect these days, it's a good area of research, is supply chain control towers. Okay, and analytical interventions, whatever we have, descriptive, predictive, descriptive, cognitive, and so on, diagnostic. Then few things, use cases, the numerical things I'll be discussing, and later we can get into the question and answer session. So the key supply chain issues.
Sorry to interrupt you. You put your slide mode. Put your screen PPT slide. Right. Fine.
Now the key supply chain decisions that we have is basically, these are the WH questions that we have, and this is very, very crucial for any supply chain, right? I'm not very sure how many people are there from a supply chain background, but as I said, few are from other backgrounds. So I thought maybe little domain is essential to connect it to the analytical part of it. So the key supply chain decisions that we have is basically the facilities that we need to have, and how many facilities, where should be the facilities located at. Okay. Now with this, there is one critical issue. I think you might have read also in the newspaper. So it says Ford might end its operation in India maybe by 2022, right? So they are into huge loss. That is what is the news, but official news maybe we like to hear it from Ford itself. So some $2 billion they have already in loss, and they have started their operation way back some 93 or so, and it's almost 27 or 28 years they're in operation. But what has really happened to Ford in the last 25 years or so, that they made a tremendous loss in the picture. Okay, so don't you think that they had manpower to think about analytics? Yes, they had. Then the expertise, don't you think that they had the kind of expertise? everything they had. Then what has gone wrong? A typical company, and it's a very established company, so getting into loss of $2 billion, roughly translating into 16,000 crores. Okay, roughly translating into 16,000 crores. What has gone wrong? Okay, that actually I'll be leaving the talk with is a kind of a food for thought for you, so you can probably think about it. Okay, then that's one thing. Then the transportation modalities that is available, right? So whether the transportation has to take place, directly or indirectly. If it is directly, that is, you can say it's a direct network. If it is indirectly, that can happen through a distribution center, a sorting center, whatever you say, with the in connection with the e-commerce, or maybe you can say in traditional supply chain practices, right? How it happens, the transportation network, the distribution network. Okay, and most important thing that we have is the services. Okay, services. So even though it is a manufacturing firm, basically we are talking about in today's discussion. So even though it is a service firm, if it is a manufacturing firm, they are not free from the services, right? So what could be the service here? Service could be the making the product available in the shelf, could be the service. So then in such a case, what happens? What happens with respect to the site of service level? What happens with respect to the filling rate? What happens with respect to the expected shortage? Okay, these are the few jargons that I'm using here. People, those who are from this background, might be aware of it. People who are not, maybe you can probably Google the term, or maybe get into a supply chain book that I have suggested at the end of my presentation. So you will get a lot of more insights. Okay, and then other thing is that in addition to the distribution network and the transportation network, when I'm talking, actually I'm basically referring to all these points. You can probably connect to these things. Okay, so now one thing is that when we talk about the services, and other point in time also we talk about the cost, right? So it is the cost which is one of the critical issues. It's not that to have a service level of 99% or so, like what we do normally in the normal distribution. So we say 99% confidence level, right? So 1% is the significance level. So 99% service level. So that means 99% service level does not mean that 99% of the customers are happy with you, or they're getting the product on time every time, right? So it may not be actually true. So you have to calculate many of the things there. The supply chain operations metric, okay, supply chain operations reference metric, that we need to assess. Then only you can say this is what exactly is happening. And all these are very, very analytical in nature, logical in nature. You cannot really, get into some analytics and have some data, some, the big data, and whatever machine learning algorithm that you fit. But the basis is basically the logic that we need to take into further things, right? So that's one thing that I said previously. Then comes buying or making decision, right? Then related to the sourcing practices, right? So especially the supply chain, what it does is basically you may be knowing planning, sourcing, making, delivering, and finally the reverse logistics. Okay, as per the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals (CSCMP), this is what is the standard nomenclature, standard definition for a typical supply chain practice, right? Now, how we evaluate this supply chain practices, that is nothing but the supply chain operations reference, that we can have a typical analysis of all those metrics to come to a conclusion whether a typical supply chain is working fine or it's not working fine. Things need to be improved in the process, right? Then comes your inventory. This is a very, very challenging task. Okay, so as you know, inventory is something that if you have less, you have you may have lost sale, you may have customer attrition. Okay, if you have more, then what will happen is lot of holding cost, product obsolescence. All these things will be happening in the process. Now, to have a right inventory strategy, right inventory strategy, that is, we basically say multi-stage inventory in the supply chain, that has to be properly monitored. So how we can monitor? Probably one of the solutions that I have cited here in the presentation is basically you can say that is through the supply chain control tower. Supply chain control tower, that is one thing. Probably you can monitor your multi-stage inventory, and you can probably get into some kind of shifting the inventory from one stage to the other stage without really manufacturing it. So what happens most of the times, people may feel that higher is the inventory, better it is. Okay, so they do not really understand that inventory, when it is there, probably there is a demand, you can probably sell. That is one thing. But second thing is that to have that additional inventory, you may have to have higher working capital management, so capital requirement. Okay, higher number of, or maybe higher resources, or you can say the use of the manpower of the machines. They may have to be additionally put in place, like overtime they need to work. Okay, so that may be again costlier. So what is that you will be getting out of it, one additional sales, versus what is that you will be really incurring it. So is it a good idea to have a higher inventory in comparison to lower inventory, but frequent replenishment of the inventory, right? So this is another key concern, and there a lot of work is happening in terms of you say it is optimization, you say it is a predictive analytics or prediction models or whatever. So that is one thing. Now finally there is another critical task that we all are encountering, is nothing but the resilience. Okay, I think for the past 1 year or so, the COVID-19 situation, we are basically talking about the resilience. Okay, so are you going to be resilient, or you are going to be stable? Okay, so this is a food for thought for, especially for the researchers. Are you going to be a stable company? And what is stability and all that, you need to define your own metric. And you can say you are some company, but you can be resilient. You can quickly come back to the normalcy after a typical distortion, that is a situation like COVID-19. COVID-19, of course, is a very extreme situation. Probably we cannot really factor it all the times, because situation like COVID-19 will be very, very frequent in future. That guarantee probably nobody can give, and this is very, very clear that this is a kind of an incident or a natural disaster. The frequency is very, very low, right? The frequency is very, very low. So this is one thing. Then the question here is, as per IBM, so if you want to be resilient, so what is that you want to do in the process, right? So first of all, you have to be very, very highly visible. Okay, and visibility you add with your speed. Visibility with speed, if you add, then it will be basically resilience, right? So this is one school of thought. So that is resilience. Other school of thoughts, you can say, no, we don't believe in the resilience. We can probably believe in the more stability. So what is that? Is stability, right? So a stable company, as I said a little before, if you have taken some clue from that one company is making frequent inventory turns, and average inventory that is replenished is less. Other company, that company number B or company B, is replenishing less number of times, or inventory turn is basically low, but the average inventory that is replenished is higher. So these are the two different schools of thoughts. Okay, now you must say which is more stable and which is less stable. So in fact, according to me, maybe the first company who has a more inventory turns and less average inventory size or replenishment size is more stable than the company who is believing in lesser number of tons but average higher replenishment inventory. So we need to define what is that, is basically the stability, right? So then things like this will keep continuing with respect to the supply chain decisions, and they're all analytical in nature. They're all analytical in nature, given the data, given the cases. We can probably analyze and come to the kind of a conclusion that, or maybe you can say there may be alternative solutions for that. People may say you should have always a plan B, right? Always we should have a plan B. Plan A, if it doesn't work, then plan B, right? So you can say then higher inventory turns, lower average inventory size. That's plan A. If that doesn't work, maybe for some reason, then maybe plan B that a higher number of tons and lower inventory replenishment size can probably be taken into consideration. So these are the few things that we need to take into discussion as far as the logic or analytical thinking is concerned. So now let's have a look at it clearly. This says whatever supply chain that are in action in the market, you can broadly classify into two categories. Okay, one could be your efficient supply chain that is basically driven by the cost, and there is another supply chain that is basically driven by the responsiveness or the timeliness, right? Then the question comes here that this is very self-explanatory. I'm not getting into too much details of it. When we talk about a typical supply chain, whether it is matching with respect to the requirement, okay, or not. So what happens here is the key issue behind the supply chain operation is nothing but the uncertainty measurement. So uncertainty is one task or one aspect of the supply chain that should be taken very, very seriously. Okay, the market is purely uncertain whether you are selling, food product or you are selling, a costly car like, Mercedes-Benz, whatever you are selling. So this could be the two extremes. Okay, but everywhere there is some uncertainty, there is some certainty. So uncertainty assessment is one key thing that need to be addressed in the process. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to be fitting into the requirement. So the key network decisions that we have is basically the the role of the facility location, then the capacity allocation. Capacity allocation is one important aspect in the supply chain analytics, that you can say that whether you need extra capacity or you want new capacity, or it's purely aggregate production planning process, or we say it's like a APP model. There we can say that what is that you basically need. So maybe down the line, if you get into the Ford automobile case or Ford India case, you may be finding that maybe it's a capacity allocation problem that led to the company probably making a huge loss down the line, right? So whatever it is, so I'm just giving you the orientation. I'm just sensitizing you, especially the the researchers who are going to work in this typical area, or maybe business analysts who are taking supply chain as a domain for their analysis or whatever. So I'm just sensitizing you. You can probably think about it. Where is the problem? How we can basically take the kind of decision, and most importantly, the uncertainty that we have, the uncertainty assessment, and what if analysis. So what if analysis is something that we can probably have a simulation, okay? And as you know that the Monte Carlo simulation, you can do it in Excel, you can do it, with respect to the larger, the simulation software is available. You have any logic software, you have any logistics software, and there are several, even in Python also you can do the simulation. There are many other softwares available for the simulation. So before you actually do anything, that maybe you can run a simulation and you see what is that is needed. So instead of setting up a new farm, can you probably cope up with an existing farm, and there you can have instead of one shift, maybe you can add up one more shift. Okay, so that probably is a better solution than setting up a new farm elsewhere, because that will be costlier, and in case you don't make enough profit, then you will be definitely getting into trouble. Design options that are available, that is, I'm just quickly getting into certain things, then we'll get into the analytical topic that are behind the discussion. Then the design options are basically, as I said, the design options can be integrated with the transportation network. Okay, the design network, basically you can say the distributor network or the dealer network. Then you are mixing up with the transportation network. Okay, so these are the two different things. Okay, these are the two different things, and most of the e-commerce supply chains that we all are more or less familiar with, how the Flipkart model works or how the Amazon model works. Okay, so they have a sorting center, they have a distribution center, and they're all connected. Okay, so the question is here that do you need to prefer a centralized location or the decentralized mode of distribution? Then what is the kind of transportation network that is needed? Whether you'll be using a direct network or you'll be using an indirect network, and within the indirect network, are you going to cover a DC? Are you going to cover the milk run? Whether the milk run, it's basically related to the supply or basically related to, you can say, the demand. So these are the few things that we need to take into discussion. Then we can better design a good network. And for the information of the audience, so in case you want, you have several demand centers, or you can say the locations that from where you are probably you are experiencing the demand. Then what happens there is basically you can probably go for a simulation run and see what will be the optimum solution of that particular network. Optimum solution of that particular network. Are you going to use a single DC, or you are going to use a multiple DCs? Okay, or you can say how many production plants will be basically better for meeting the requirement of the entire market, or maybe the requirement of the customers, whatever it is. So these are the few things that somebody can run it like you can say like a digital twin or whatever. Then you just do that and you take the decision accordingly, right? So data-based decision making is basically the key, but before that is nothing but your logic. So in case you are going to commit a mistake, let's say you have a farm and the farm has already made some losses, okay, or maybe you are experiencing a declining demand over a period of time, and you are going for expanding the capacity. Then it's purely illogical. It's purely illogical. So logic should come first, then analytics, right? So this is what is the key thing that we all should remember and use accordingly, because data will not be revealing anything, and software doesn't know what is your data, right? So we as a researcher, we as an analyst, we as a manager need to systematically proceed with the data, right? That's one thing, whether it is small data or a big data or whatever data it is. So it is very, very crucial. Then comes one key issue that that may help the analytics or maybe the supply chain practitioners is basically the aggregation. Okay, the aggregation if you say this is little related to economic order quantity and other things, and other point in time we can probably say the trade-off. The trade-off, we need to balance. Okay, if you say what percentage of your customers are driven by cost, and what percentage of your customers are driven by timeliness. Okay, so you cannot really mix them, right? You cannot really mix them. So if a customer, someone who is paying less charges, will be probably happy to wait for additional 1 day or so, but the person who has paid a premium will not definitely be waiting for you whatever quality product it is, right? So these are the few things that we need to have a kind of a trade-off. So this is pure common sense. Then the analytics comes later, right? So then if you want to have some analytics, then probably can say the full truckload of material or less than truckload of material. Okay, in addition to that, the service level that you are going to perform in the process. These are the few things need to be systematically analyzed, and then you can probably collect the data, then you can analyze and you can take a call. Okay, then comes your assessment of the uncertainties. As far as the uncertainty is concerned, you have a few things. You may ask how we can probably measure the uncertainty, right? So uncertainty is something that is very, very crucial from the viewpoint of the supply chain performance. And whatever analytics you do without understanding the uncertainty may not really make much sense, right? So one of the simple metric, if I can tell you, is nothing but statistically the standard deviation. Just you take the standard deviation and you analyze systematically your markets, your market segments, your implied uncertainty, your demand uncertainty, your supply uncertainty, whatever you want to measure, you just measure. So simple metric, that is standard deviation. You can probably take and you can calculate, and you can see what really happens with respect to the things that you have taken into consideration. Then the assessment of uncertainty is basically we need to understand the customer segment that are being solved, and when we this is not a very simple thing to execute or to understand, right? Let me tell you. Please, one request is that don't go very superficially, right? So what happens is basically when I talk about understanding the customer segment, okay, so people may say it is very simple, but it's not that actually. The meaning here is very critical, in the sense when we talk about the customer segment, we talk about the uncertainty that comes from each segment and from the aggregate level. Let's say Hyderabad is a market, or maybe any other market you have, then there are, let's say, some 2 crore people, and those 2 crore people you can break virtually, or maybe with some kind of a segregation. That segregation could be related to the price, could be related to the timeliness, could be related to the quality, could be related to the innovation, could be related to flexibility, could be related to anything, right? Then you do one thing, you systematically break them, and then you go for the analysis. Okay, now you have 2 sets of data. You have 2 sets of data. One set is your aggregate level, and the other one being the smaller markets that you have taken into consideration. So these 2 inputs will be giving you a lot of insights. These 2 inputs will be giving you a lot of insights. You can probably calculate what is the aggregate sigma and what is your disaggregated sigmas. You can probably correlate them while things are happening. Sure. So that's very crucial, right? So though it is looking like very simple, but I wanted to give you a little more orientation. So when you have the data, then you can probably take into consideration these things. Then other things will come slowly. That is your prediction, prescription, whatever you have, you can probably execute. Then the quantity of the material that is needed in each lot, okay. And as I said, somebody may be related to the quantity, somebody may be concerned with the timeliness, somebody may be related to the variety, somebody may be related to the services, okay. Somebody may be related to the services, okay. You may be an average performer, in the sense average quality product you may be selling in the market, but when it comes to the services, you may have the better service for them, right? In the sense, there is a complaint, you address it as soon as possible. There is a warranty related issue, you address it as soon as possible. Okay, so you take into consideration all your service level related issues, then you just do that. That may be another segment that has the different type of implied demand uncertainty, right? Similarly, price is very clear, and the innovation. So all these things, if you take into consideration, and you can break the supply chain into multiple segments, and this is like a segmentation analytics. Okay, this is like a segmentation analytics. You segment it and you systematically analyze, because if you say that each customer is different, right? So if you see the historical perspective of the supply chain, right, way back in say 1900, or maybe a little later 1900. So the first revolution started with Ford itself. Okay, the first revolution of the supply chain started with Ford itself. Second revolution with the Toyota, or the Toyota production system. Then came was the Dell supply chain, that is basically defined as a hybrid supply chain, where people talk about a mix of push versus pull. Okay, so what percentage can be devoted to the push and what percentage can be devoted to the pull, and what is the right push and pull boundary? What is the right push and pull boundary? That is another critical concern that we need to take into consideration. So these are actually few things related to the supply chain which should help us to understand the uncertainty. If we do not understand the uncertainty, then things will be very difficult, and we cannot really cope up in the long run. So this is one thing that every supply chain should think about. Okay. So now the second thing is that in case you want to be strategically fitting into the requirement of the uncertainty, then it is better to be flexible. It is better to be flexible. Okay, if you look for the efficiency consideration, if you look for the responsiveness consideration, you are doing a biggest mismatch as I said little before in this typical case. Of course, certain things I didn't tell here, but that is what is coming here. So if you want to be fitting into the requirement and your uncertainties are very high, then it's better to be flexible than to be looking for the efficiency consideration, responsiveness consideration, and so on. So another thing is that when we talk about analytics about all this design or the network issues, okay, or transportation network issues, or even uncertainty related issues, or capacity related issues, whatever we have spoken so far, you need good data, and data should have data should be qualitative in nature, in the sense data should be free from errors, should be complete and all that, right? So that is why we can say basically most of the cases we have the data is not very structured. Data is not very structured. That is why the big data is coming into picture, right? So you have the images, you have the audio, you have the video. That is why you have the deep learning, or maybe you can say for the images we use basically the deep learning, and the natural language processing, and all that we have systematically. You can probably get into those kind of topics. But irrespective of these things, what is very, very essential is to have a good database or good quality data that can really help to use the supply chain analytics tools, whatever is available. You can say R programming, you can say Python, you can say MATLAB, you can say the simplest thing could be your SPSS, whatever it is. So we need to have a good quality data set. What I mean is basically you have the data, you have to clean the data, you have to check for the randomness, you have to check for the normality, you have to check for many of the things that we have. So whatever it is, the architecture for getting the right data or the quality data, that is very, very crucial. So there we talk about one thing that is is taking little interest, or maybe you can say is one of the very nice research areas, especially for the researchers, those who are watching the presentation. So the supply chain control towers, okay, the supply chain control towers, is like it's an integrated approach of taking into consideration your ERP, your transportation management system, your warehouse management system, okay, all those things can be taken into consideration, and you can have a database, or you can have the control of the data, maybe a mail, or maybe you can say a kind of a call, or whatever you have. So you can have the good quality data, and this data will be helping, okay, this data will be helping to minimizing uncertainties, minimize the related aspects in the in the supply chain flow. That basically people who are not familiar with the supply chain flows, the supply chain flows are basically of three types. We have the material flow, we have the finance flow, we have the information flow. So information is the key. Information is the key, right? So material is one thing that goes in the forward direction. When there is a reverse logistics, it comes in the backward direction. When the finance is or the payment is made by the buyer, it flows in the backward direction, and information of course goes in both the directions. So as far as the supply chain control tower, it's a relatively a good topic of interest for, especially for the researchers. Okay, so what is that is needed basically is that you have all this data, there are various stakeholders. Okay, these are you can see here the carrier tracking, the logistics service providers, you have the customers, you have the suppliers, you have the interface here. Okay, and you have all these types of data that you have your dashboard, and you have in the charting, the mobile, email, whatever else. So all this can be collated, or maybe can be put in one place, maybe in the server, or maybe the server can be in the cloud. Okay, cloud computing of course is taking very, very vital role in this case. Okay, so here again another thing is that you have the ERP, then order management, warehousing management system, the transportation management system, the supply chain planning. So all this data can be collated, or maybe you can have the appropriate interface to share wherever it is needed. One use case I can probably tell here That use case is very simple here. You can see that I am taken from HCL, technologies. This is very simple use case. So you can see here, this is actually the supply chain control tower here, and there is a shortage in this particular store. Okay, now this particular store is supposed to be distributed by DC number 1. Okay, is supposed to be distributed by DC number 1, but DC number 1 has less stock, or maybe DC number 1 is not able to meet the requirement of the store number 1 or store number 2, whatever it is. Then what happens is that that information is going to the supply chain control tower, and the supply chain control tower is giving instruction to the DC number 2 to deliver that material to or maybe directly to the store number 1, or maybe instructing the store number 2 to deliver that material to store number 1. So this is actually a simple but very practical example of supply chain control tower. And here in this case, I can probably tell that IBM's this particular one, that IBM Sterling inventory control tower. Okay, that is one thing that probably you can get into, and you'll get a lot of insights about it. You can also Google the term supply chain control tower. You'll get a lot of information. The articles, the research papers, there are so many things are available. You can probably get into it. This is one of the good areas where we can probably take into consideration with respect to the good quality data, because as an analyst, you should be requiring the good quality data. So finally, when you have the good quality data, then you can get into action, and that action is basically your supply chain analytics. Okay, so supply chain analytics, as I said previously, it's not a very new thing or something. That is actually hybrid concept of the supply chain management and the data driven decision making. So both the things that we can add together, that becomes your analytics. And in terms of the supply chain analytics, these are the few things that basically we talk with respect to the analytical techniques that we basically use. Okay, so as I said previously, there are many things I said in terms of network, in terms of transportation, in terms of inventory. In a typical supply chain, there are 7 different drivers. Okay, so you can probably Google the term, and these are the 3 major drivers. As I said, one is the transportation, one is the facility, another one is the inventory, and so on. So you have all these things into picture that we need to systematically analyze. So analytical techniques, basically what you have is basically descriptive analytics, and if you want to assess what is really happening, and the predictive analytics. Okay, that is what is forecasting the future, and there we can have the time series based model, or you can say data mining based models. The prescriptive analytics, there we have the optimization techniques. Okay, or you can say sometimes a typical problem may not have the optimized solution. We may have something called near optimum solution, that could be a kind of a heuristic problem. Then we have simulation. Okay, and the simulation is basically you basically try with the data that is available, or you generate the data with some distribution. Okay, starting from binomial distribution to gamma distribution and so on, the critical distributions. You generate the data, then you validate your result. You generate the data, you analyze the data, then you go for the decision making. But before you take the decision, you can validate the data with respect to the market condition, and that is basically one important aspect that also can be integrated with the analytics, or you can say with the machine learning. So this is one thing. Then comes certain times we may have, as I said, that you can say with respect to the images, or you can say with respect to the videos or audios, with respect to a typical material that are there in the literature, that somebody can go for the cognitive analytics like IBM Watson technologies. That is another thing that is available with respect to the cognitive analytics. That is basically in the Python also you can do with respect to natural language processing. So all these things can be taken together to fulfill the requirement of the supply chain analytics. But it may not be expected that one person good at all the fields. Maybe different persons may be working in these areas to accomplish a certain task. Now, one of the success stories of IBM, Sterling inventory control tower is Lenovo. Probably you can get into the website and see. Of course, you will not be getting the data and other things, but certain inputs that you'll be finding how the inventory control tower is helping to reduce the supply chain disruptions, and how the response time is reduced from certain days to certain minutes. Okay, so this is how things are happening with respect to supply chain control towers, and most of the things may happen with respect to the cloud computing. With this, I'm giving you the perspective. Now I'll be getting into a little bit of data part of it, and I'll be showing you a few things that in terms of the Excel sheets, and a little bit of descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics that may sensitize you enough to to take the data and do it yourself. So now let's see this. Let's have a look at it. This is a kind of a research paper that was published in 97. Okay, almost you can say some 23 years before. Okay, 23, 20 years, 24 years before. But any recent article, if you get, probably you can use in your research. But this is the information that I have. So let's not worry about the time part of it. Let's see the concept part of it. Okay, so previously I have said this is actually the score metric, and this metric is basically given by Supply Chain Operations Reference at the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, USA. Okay, now let's have a look at it. I'm not getting into too much details of it because it takes almost 2 hours to explain. This is a simple data. This is a simple data set, and what analytics you can do with respect to this. Okay, it is not you are not required to do any kind of fit any regression model, or you have to fit any kind of any other predictive analytics model here. But it's a simple data. What analytics you can probably draw from here is very simple. Okay, so let's have a look at it. I am just taking one aspect, and I'm just explaining it to you how logical, how analytical it would be. Right? Let's say previously I have given you one example that I said that the one school of thought is higher inventory turn, and other school of thought is lower inventory turn but higher average replenishment size. Okay, so let me repeat. One inventory turn, or one school of thought is higher inventory turn and a lower average replenishment size. The other one is the lower inventory turn and higher average inventory replenishment size. Okay, now this is clear from here. You see, inventory days of supply. That means those who are not familiar, once you replenish your inventory, like it's a store, you keep the material in the store, you can sell for 38 days, and here you can sell for 22 days. Here you can sell for 22 days. Okay, now if you see it superficially, you can say superior performers are better than the average performer. Now my question is, what else you see from this particular table? It's a very small table, hardly some 20 data points available, and what kind of analytics you can do from here, what insights, analytical insights you can probably draw from here. Okay, that is one crucial thing. That is nothing but your analytics, the logical thinking that should come into picture. I'll just give you one example, then we'll move on. So see, this inventory days of supply is 38 days, and inventory days of supply here is 22 days. So now if I relate this, so you may be under impression that someone whose inventory days of supply is 38 days should be in a better position to have a good service level, okay, and good filling rate. That is not correct. So why? Let's have a look at it. Filling rate when it is 38 days, it is 96%. When it is 22 days, it is 98%. So what is the logic behind it? So when the filling rate is 96% and you are keeping inventory for 38 days, slightly more than 1 month, or you can say 1 month and 1 week, and here it is 3 weeks. Okay, you are keeping the inventory for 5 weeks, and here you are keeping the inventory for 3 weeks. Someone who is keeping the inventory for 3 weeks has a filling rate of 98%. Please excuse me; these are all all these are jargons. They have all analytical perspectives behind them. Due to the paucity of the time, I am not explaining certain things. Maybe you can out of your own interest, you can probably search for it. In case you have any trouble or something, you can probably write a mail to us. We'll be very happy to help you. So the filling rate Filling rate is basically supported by the expected shortage. Okay, expected shortage will be there, and how often you have the expected shortage. Okay, so very clearly with this particular data, nothing else is available to us. Do not be under impression that a higher inventory level, higher number of inventory days will have a higher filling rate. Okay, that's very clear here. Okay, why it is not happening? Because this 38 days, 38 days and 96%, and here 98% and 22 days. So you can see here one thing, they are somewhat inversely proportional. Okay, one is higher, one is lower, one is higher, one is lower. So they are like something. If you can correlate with this, then what happens is you may find behind it there's something called cycle service level. The cycle service level is the key thing. The cycle service level is the key thing that we basically take into consideration with respect to the reordering point, the the replenishment policies for the periodic review policy or a continuous review policy, or what is that is the policy behind. So there are many things need to be taken into consideration for this kind of analysis. So this is one thing. So second thing is that let's talk about the logistics cost. Let's talk about the logistics cost. So let's correlate. This is 38 days. 38 days is your inventory days of supply, and your logistics cost is 8%. In fact, in a country like India, we have about 12% of the logistics cost. Okay, so the flow of the material from one place to the other place, we spend basically 12% of the total cost. Okay, how we calculate? We calculate it with respect to the supply chain metric, that is the sales minus profit minus administrative expenses minus any promotional expenses. Okay, so you can probably refer to the supply chain of operations reference by Supply Chain Council. Okay, this you can get the reference also. I quoted the reference, so you can probably see that. Also, you can get into the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. You will have a detailed score analytics, first order, second order, third order, and so on. So you can see from there. So let's have a quick look here. So 38 days, this is translating into 8% of the total logistics cost. And here you have the 22 days, it is translating into 3% of the logistics cost. Now you may be thinking, how is this possible? Okay, we cannot probably say this is this is very clear or obvious or something. No, it is not that. What is basically happening is when you go for a higher number of inventory, that higher number of days of inventory that you have in the store. So what happens there is there may be product obsolescence, there may be higher working capital requirement, there may be many other things, there may be supervision, and all those things will be costlier. So those costlier things may be affecting your total management, total logistics management cost. So this is another thing. And other thing is that you can see from here that the number of tons, here you have the 12 tons and here you have the 19 tons. So when you are saving money here, even in the cash to cash cycle time also you are saving a lot of time. Here it is 1.5 months and this is roughly 4 weeks. Okay, or you can say this is 6 weeks and this is 4 weeks. So this is how you can probably figure out how things are happening. You are saving a lot of time here, and that is helping you to have a higher higher number of tons with respect to the working capital management. Right? So these are the few things that you can derive from the small portion of the data. If you are good in supply chain, the domain, you can probably experiment. If you are not, then you may need to read certain things. Then you can probably get into action. Now there is another study. Interestingly, I found the new science of retailing by Fisher and Raman in the year 2010. It's a very nice article. I was just getting into it, and you can, if given a chance, you should get into that article. So here actually what is happening, I can correlate. This is the work happened in 97, and this is another piece of work 2010. They do not have any relation with each other, but I just tried to correlate what has gone wrong there. You can probably have a look at it. So just have a look at it. Here you have just one thing I'll say here. The rising inventory level can predict your future earnings declines. Okay, future earnings may decline in the process, and most importantly here you can see the 1 unit of inventory that you increase. 1 unit of inventory that you increase may be giving you 0.22% sales. That means every 5 items that you keep in the store, there is a very likely that one item will be sold and the rest of 4 will not be sold for some time. It's not that it will not be sold, it will be sold, but not very, not the way that you actually want. So this is what is the danger. So if this is the danger that is available, this is also use case, information, but the farm names are guised here, so they have not informed or indicated. So you can see probably the other things. So that doesn't matter actually, the knowing the name of the company or whatever. So the important thing is that the concept. So 1 unit of item that you keep in the store, that will be giving you about 1/4 of the sale, or maybe you can say 1/4 or 1/5. 5 items will be leading to 1 unit of sales. Then if that is the case, what is the point in increasing the inventory replenishment size? Just think it logically. So logically it is improper. It is logically not correct. So then what analytics should be doing with respect to the data? So this is futile. So logical thinking should come into action fast. Then whatever data that you have, you can probably take into consideration. Now let's move further. There's a little bit of description that I have spoken. One more thing, there is another use case I'll be talking here. You can probably see, and this particular data, that there are 2 farms here, and farm A and farm B. I think I'm running short of time, so quickly I need to just explain it to you. Maybe another 10 minutes. I'll just stop here with respect to my presentation. So here is the use case. Let's say there's a farm A and there's a farm B. I'm not getting too much, calculations. I can just show you. If you have interest, you can copy paste the data in your Excel sheet and you can calculate. So this is purely a kind of a descriptive analytics with a small data set that is taken here. So these are the information available, and we are using the score metric. Okay, more or less the score metric here, and that is giving us this particular result. Now I have calculated here. So farm A and farm B. Now you look at these figures and tell me which particular farm is better and in what respect. Which particular farm is not better and in what respect. Okay. Let us not take into other things. Let's see this one thing here. So the cash to cash cycle time, basically it is a very high level, performance metric that comes from, accounts receivable turnover ratio, inventory turnover ratio, and accounts payable turnover ratio. This is actually the time lag between the payment is received versus the payment is made. In the services, basically it is, but in terms of the manufacturing, this is what you need to use. So you can see this minus 2.44, and here it is minus 11.33. Of course, the farm A is better than farm B because it pays its suppliers relatively better way. But in case of farm B, it takes more time. So which probably is not a good sign, because many suppliers may not be really interested to continue for a long time. That is a danger. So this has to be taken into consideration with respect to this particular analytics, with respect to the descriptive analytics, and that is nothing but your score metric. So then comes your prediction. The prediction models, that it is actually the indicative list. You have some of you may be familiar with it. You have a moving average method, you have weighted moving average method, exponential smoothing, fold test method. Okay, all these things are available. The high level models are available, SARIMA or SARIMAX. Okay, if you have the time series data, then probably you can take into consideration all this analysis. You have the regression based method here. Regression based methods could not be only simple linear regression or maybe non-linear regression. You may have the Rees regression, you may have a lasso regression, you may have the panel regression. According to the data that you have, then you can take into consideration, and that will be the regression based models, which are very, very popular in any machine learning analysis, or maybe you can say in the business analytics. Then you have here that's ML based predictive models. Those are purely the time series. Here you can integrate with respect to the cross sectional data that you have is MLP, or you can say you have Rees and lasso that I said, logistic regressions, the support vector machines. Most of the times it has been seen that support vector machines give the better result in comparison with the other models. Then if you are going for a forecasting, that a recurrent neural networks are a good model in comparison with the feed forward network or maybe any other neural network based models. Then when the data is constrained, or there is not much known about the independent variables or the dependent variables, or maybe there you can probably use some kind of a simulation, or whatever you can say, the reinforcement learning mechanism. So you'll have a lot of insights out of these models, and it will take some time, to understand these typical concepts. And you can do it in R programming, you can do it in Python or MATLAB, whatever it is. Then the prescriptive models, or the theoretical perspective behind the prescriptive models, or you can say supply chain optimization purely. They are basically linear and non-linear optimization, MILP, that mixed integer linear programming, the queuing model, the discrete and the stochastic simulations, system dynamics, game theory, dynamic programming, multi-criteria decision making. You have analytical hierarchy process. Okay, you have TOPSIS that can be integrated with the fuzzy logic and so on. So many variety of topics are available. Given your interest, you can probably get into these topics, and you can probably learn. Okay, given your interest, and if you want some kind of additional training from us, probably we'll be happy to help you. And I think that can be probably taken with respect to a kind of a workshop mode, not really this kind of seminar where the time is very short, and we need to give you a snapshot of everything, right? So that's one thing that I feel that you need a kind of longer time where the time will be enough for some discussion where the hands-on can be given. Okay. Now, some of the smart supply chain practices, I'll just tell you, and with that, I'll stop my presentation. So here, actually, the as I said previously, the network planning. And in the network planning, you can use the mixed integer linear programming based models. You can use the greenfield analysis, that is actually the analysis with respect to the center of gravity method. The transportation model, basically we have the algorithm behind the transportation models in Solver or whatever software is basically the Vogel's approximation method. You can go for the cross-docking. Cross-docking is a popular strategy by the Walmart, and many people are also using it. And in case of international business or the global supply chain, the transshipment, as far as India is concerned, the two transshipment hubs that we have in and around us is one is Singapore, another one is Sri Lanka. And the temporal aggregation, full truckload or less than truckload, with or without constraint, with the minimum order quantity, with the economic order quantity, all these varieties of information are available. Then comes the smart contract. So the market is uncertain, then revenue is uncertain, then you cannot really commit a good earning for somebody. Someone is there in the in the supply chain, and you cannot really commit that you'll be getting good amount. So there probably some kind of sharing or some kind of revenue sharing, some kind of buyback, some kind of quantity flexibility, those kind of contracts can come into picture, so that you will have a better or informed decision making in the process. So this is what I've already spoken. These are the few references. Before I close my presentation, I'll just give you a little orientation for the data that you can probably see, and you can I hope you may take some interest out of it. Okay, so quickly some prediction. I'm not going to discuss the details of it. Okay, I'm just showing you that this is actually the data set, and we have used a very small, simple moving average method that is in the Excel sheet. No Python, no R, no MATLAB, nothing. Simple, Excel sheet calculation. Excel being one of the powerful tools, okay, that you can use. Of course, certain things are not available in Excel. I think there are paid versions available. If in case you are from industry, you can probably think about it. Then your weighted moving average, then your exponential smoothing. I'm not going to talk about it. These are actually the Excel-based calculations, and I have seen there's a tremendous benefit, or the tremendous, you can say the benefit that is coming from the errors, the forecasting errors. The forecasting error could be the mean absolute deviation. It could be mean absolute percentage error, whatever it is. So there is a gradual improvement. Like if can show you that the more and more the calculation that you do and refine the data. Just quickly, I'll just show you. You can see this. Those who are familiar with the terminologies, this is called as mean absolute percentage error. Now you can see here in this case, quickly, I'll just 15.91. So with respect to the simple linear regression, I am sure all of you are familiar with the simple linear regression. So simple linear regression has given at the end of a typical time horizon 15.91, and here when you modify further, then this another method, it got reduced to 10.91. When you are getting into again critical method, that is nothing but your Winters method, that is taking care of your seasonality and cyclicality and so on. So here you are getting 8.67. This is what is the beauty of this particular more work with respect to the data and the data analytics. Okay, this is one thing. So maybe this particular data set I can share with you, and this is one thing that is nothing but is a data set that is basically tractor cells that has been taken from Kaggle, and I have analyzed and given the interest, I'll request Professor Acharya to share with all of you. So I'm just closing this. Then another one with respect to the optimization, I'll just take 2-3 minutes, sir. Another thing that is optimization, I'm not getting into too much details about it. So you can see this is the capacity allocation problem. Okay, so the capacity allocation problem where your facility locations or the number of plants are basically binary. Okay, they're basically binary, and we just solve it. Okay, to find the minimum cost. Okay, I'm not getting into too much details. I'm just showing you how optimization can help in decision making. Okay, do not worry if you are not familiar with the terms that I'm demonstrating. It is only for your the sensitization. You just need to see whether this can be possible. Okay, yes, this is possible. Then your transportation model, what is to be taken from where to where. Then this is a pure transportation model. Let's say you have 3 places from where you transport, and there are 3 places to where you are transporting. Then you just solve it. You get some minimum cost. Then comes your, this is one thing. If you are getting into international business or your global supply chain, you may be thinking about whether it is a good idea to directly transport the material from USA to India, or maybe you can come via Singapore or Thailand or whatever. Then is there any possibility? So that particular part is nothing but a cross docking. So the cross docking or the transshipment comes into picture. I'll just show you. Here we have taken and the data we solved it, that we got 19,160, and the same problem we solved with respect to the transportation networks, with respect to the cross docking network, and we're getting 16,230. So there is a benefit with respect to the cross docking. Then finally the temporal aggregation. The temporal aggregation, there are too much of numbers in analytics. If you fear the numbers, I don't think you can really prosper or maybe really go ahead. So you need to like the numbers first of all. Then here you have the temporal aggregation. It's a hypothetical data here. So we have taken 4 models, and those 4 models have been solved. And this is actually, you have an order, you deliver separately. Another order, you deliver separately. Another order, you deliver separately. So what is that you are actually spending in the process? Now, other point in time, what you do is, the manager or the supply chain analyst may think, is it possible to add or maybe combine model A with model B, C, and D? And if it is, then what is the potential benefit? So I have done it. You can probably keep your cursor and you can see what is the benefit. The benefit is 2%. There is a 2% change. There is a 2% change in the cost. So when you are dealing with the crores of rupees, 2% can be a very great amount. Okay, don't feel that is a small amount. And this is what is purely logistics. This is purely logistics cost. In case you add with the material cost, then you will be getting, in case you add with the material cost, you are getting 2%. But without material cost, you are getting 35%. Out of 100 rupees, you are spending now 70 rupees or 65 rupees. It's a very good amount, right? So this is one thing. Then comes the contract. Okay, the contract is little critical in terms of the analysis because there are a lot of issues behind this. So I'm just quickly showing you. You can see now the supply chain profit is 100 everywhere, but when you break the profit with respect to the retailer and the manufacturer, you have 49%, 51%, 50-50, 52, 48%, 38, 62%, and so on. So this, of course, is not a very viable model because the retailer is getting 28% and the manufacturer is getting 72%. Maybe I'm not very sure, but still you can probably think about it. The 29%, here 71%. Similarly, in a revenue sharing model, you have 24 and 76%, almost 3 times, and here is actually absolutely not possible. So, but total supply chain profit is remaining constant. Total supply chain profit is remaining constant. So these are the few things I just wanted to sensitize you with respect to the the numbers, with respect to the analytics, and I hope I have given you enough insights with respect to the description, the prediction, and the prescription. Of course, there is another one, the natural language processing. That is actually you can probably use Python or maybe some other software to do that. So these are the few things. I hope I have given you enough insights, sensitized you. So I'll be leaving you with this particular thought. That is, what has really gone wrong with respect to the Ford India, why a prestigious company like Ford India is eventually, winding off its operation in India. Don't you think they had analytics? Don't you think they had, the resources, the manpower? Don't you think they had the think tank, everything? But still, then it's very painful to accept that one prestigious company is eventually, or maybe likely to leave or maybe stop its production in the country, right? So that's a food for thought for you. And thank you very much for your kind attention. And thank you very much once again, and wish you all the very best. Over to Professor Acharya.
So thank you, Pramod Kumar. Nice, insightful presentation on supply chain analytics. And question and answers. Some of the
I
questions
think, sir,
are
I have taken a little more time. So just to
no problem. It's fine. It's fine.
Little more information.
Fine.
Yeah,
There are some questions. I'll be reading out the questions, sir. Then you can respond. Fine.
Yes.
So Dr. Nagaraj is asking from Tumkur University. Could you please provide some examples on advanced supply chain analytics?
Advanced supply chain analytics. These are all analytical, or you can say the algorithms behind the, predictive, prescriptive. I have already quoted a good number of, models. Okay. So if you can little clarify what is that exactly you are looking for, it will be a little better. So I'll give you one example. Suppose most of the times what we do is basically for the cross-sectional data that we use, let us say, regression. Right now, in the regression, there may be instances where you have a large number of observations, okay, and where the number of variables may be very less. Other point in time, you may have very large number of variables. So in such a case, what happens when you go for building a regression model? It's a very simple, regression model. Your coefficient of determination will be very high. So somebody may be feeling very happy that coefficient of determination is very high. So 80% or 90%, our model is a very robust model, but it is not actually correct. So you can think about it that the model may be less reliable. So to identify or to verify, what can be done is you can probably segregate the data with respect to the training data and the testing data, and if there the scores or you can say the coefficient of determination are very, very close to each other, then you can say probably model is a good model fit. Otherwise, what may happen is your test result may be coming up with a lower coefficient of determination than the training result. There you can say the model is basically overfitting. Now, if the overfitting result, if you report, then what happens? The model becomes less reliable. So what is the best model then? In such a case, you can introduce either lasso regression, that is, least absolute shrinkage and selection operator, lasso. The lasso model you can use, or you can use the Rees regression. Depending on your requirement, you can use any of these tools. Okay. Then comes advanced tools. If you are asking, these are all part of advanced tools. Then you can say you can use the neural network. Neural network can be integrated with the fuzzy logic. That these are the few advanced tools. Depending on your interest, probably you can take it further. I feel I have addressed partly your questions. Maybe you can.
Yeah. I think you already shown some of the
already I have shown. Those are all advanced.
Mathematical based forecasting models, and then you have seen, and also you can see simulation, simulation
yes.
and scenario building.
Due to the paucity of time, sir, actually I have the plan to
Yeah.
have to take them through a simulation run with respect to any logistics, but time was too short. Actually, I could not plan for it.
And one more question from this: how supply chain analytics can be used or implemented in SAP, and how it gets connected to machine learning?
See, what is that? See, I have already shown you in the supply chain control tower, right? The supply chain control tower by default is embedding the ERP package. ERP package. So whatever data you are generating, let's say at one point in time, the data should be available for the analysis. Then you do whatever machine learning algorithm you want to do, you just do it. Okay, it's not a very big task. The critical task is to collect the quality data. That is the critical task. Critical task is not machine learning. Machine learning, you give me whatever machine learning you want to do, you give me in 2 seconds, I'll give you the result. But what is that you need? The critical is the data, quality of the data, structure of the data. That is very, very crucial.
Okay, next the
And
next
of
question.
course, in the supply chain control tower, who is basically happening with respect to the cloud computing. So data is already fed into the system, and that is shared at multiple places. Whether it is a vendor managed inventory or a consignment inventory or whatever it is, so it is already shared. So what is important is the quality data. So machine learning is a very simple thing to execute.
Okay, the next question is from Dina Tayalan. So how can you use supply chain in industry safety, industrial safety?
Industrial safety.
How can we use supply chain in industrial safety?
Industrial safety, is it related to resilience? Is something related to the resilience? Something related to the resilience. Okay. So if it's something related to the resilience, industrial safety means supply chain is basically an architecture or a network of many people. So what is that is safety you are talking about? I believe you are talking about resilience. So if you want to talk about the resilience, for the resilience is one school of thought. Okay, there you can you can probably have the first thing in the supply chain mapping, that is visibility. Then the responsiveness, that is agility. So you become resilient. That is one school of thought. Other school of thought is if you want to become more in the sense stable. If you want to become more stable, then accordingly you need to do in terms of your transportation, your inventory, in terms of your facility location planning. So you need to do. This is not a very. There is no simple answer to the resilience. There is no simple answer to resilience or the robustness or the stability. But gradually we need to take action against the drivers. The drivers. Okay, whatever drivers we have that drive the supply chain. So we need to systematically analyze each one of them. And I think some of the issues I have already cited in the presentation while showing you the score metric analytics that might have given you little insights out of it.
Yeah, maybe actually industrial safety point of view, number of accidents, number of machines failed, and how do you environment the sustainability, and how do you minimize the accident levels, and how are you going to monitor the disruptions in the supply
That's
chain?
fine, yeah. Yeah, those are the things, yes, certainly. Yes. Yeah.
So I think so that's all. I think questions. No more questions are there. Anybody is there? Which appropriate model for the time series data panel data across cross-section data? Is asking which is the appropriate model for time series data panel, time series data panel data across section data.
Appropriate model. See, time series, for the time series you have, you can go for the regression. I have shown you in the Excel sheet, you can go for regression. You can go for auto-regressive integrated moving average method. You can go for, if you are from econometric background, you can go for GARCH, okay, GARCH, okay, kind of models. You can go for, the kind of, the neural network, you can fit that a recurrent neural network. These are the advanced models available. If you have, the cross-sectional data, but over a period of time, that you are integrating with time, you can use parallel regression. You can use parallel regression.
And the next question is, one minute.
So you can create the dummy variable in case of panel. You can create the dummy variable, and you can take a case and you can create a dummy variable column. So go for the regression. Then you can go for the parallel regression.
Yeah, there is one question from Eravalli Venkata Santosh Ramana. Hello. Hello.
Sir, tell me, sir.
There is a question from Venkatramana. There is here you can see that yeah, government is shifting from multiple DCs to single DC distribution center, facilitating to deal with multiple distribution centers with introduction of single vendor system in biomedical engineering maintenance in hospitals. So what could be the reasons? So there is utter failure in this situation. So it is implemented in different states, but it is a failure. But what could be the reasons? From multiple distribution center to single distribution centers.
So the main reason is the cost, nothing else. The main reason could be the cost. Decentralized mode of distribution will be helping you in the timeliness, quality delivery, but it will be costlier. Coordination will be a problem, right? They might have failed in certain things there. So now if you go for the centralized, then what will happen is that you can control or coordinate in a better manner. You can control your cost, but one thing will be definitely suffering is that your responsiveness will be definitely delayed in the process of deliveries. Okay, so they might have tried to control their cost. I don't know what kind of distribution you're talking about. Maybe it is pharmaceutical product, related surgical items or whatever. The cost control is very, very important. So that they might have taken consideration with respect to centralized distribution. So that is what I have also made it very clear while I was talking about the distribution network itself. Okay, are you going to have a decentralized mode of distribution, or you are going to have a centralized mode of distribution? If you are going for the decentralized mode of distribution, then your agility, responsiveness, all this will be coming into picture. But cost will be higher, coordination will be a difficult issue or the problem. But here in this case, cost can be controlled and coordination will be much better. That may be their interest. I believe this may be their interest to control the cost.
I hope it is clear to Venkatramana. So now let us move to the next question. That is, what are the different softwares to use for supply chain management?
See, in fact, I have already told you, if you are using descriptive and predictive, use R programming, Python. Python is a little better software in terms of industry acceptance. If you are a researcher or a statistician, then R will be better. Okay, this is for prediction. And in case you have SPSS, Excel, and all this will be supporting. For the prediction, you have Excel solver is a good one. Okay, that is optimization. You can also go for MATLAB if your company can permit you to purchase, or certain things also you can do in Python itself. Okay, so these are the few things. And in addition to this, you can also use simulation. As I said, AnyLogic, AnyLogistics, Arena. These are the few softwares available for production and distribution. Okay, so but remember, the simulation softwares are very costlier. Simul is there. Okay, and for system dynamics also you have Vensing is there. So there are a lot of softwares available, but the personal learning edition will be giving you very little. So you have to go for buying the or you have to purchase the paid version of it. Okay, then you will have much freedom. Okay, and the description, as I said, these are few things. So for the supply chain, if you ask for supply chain, what is the or integrating everything, you will be having the result. I'm not very sure.
Yeah, Deepak Chaudhary is asking which software is best in today's scenario for supply chain.
This is what I was explaining. This is what I was explaining. So if machine learning and you are a statistician, we better use R. If you are from industry, use Python. If you are, as a researcher or maybe something in case of optimization, use Excel solver or MATLAB if it is permitted, or Tora or Lingo. So, or QM for Windows. If you don't have any freedom, use QM for Windows. It is open source. So these are the few softwares will be good for the prediction. And for simulation, I said Arena, then your Simul, then your any logic, any logistics. Okay, even in Python also you can go for the simulation. So these are the softwares available for this. So for complete supply chain solution, maybe you need to integrate. You need to integrate all of them, which I'm not very much familiar with.
Yeah, Misha, I think there are some softwares available, and actually the SAP is also there. And
No, that is ERP can be integrated with that, but
yeah,
ultimately you have to do some analysis with respect to machine learning. You need to use this. You need to optimization. You need to use this. So complete supply chain solution integrating descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, cognitive. I have my own doubts. You can check.
even Oracle supply chain cloud is there. Then Tableau
Uh,
is there. Then we
no,
have
no.
uh,
Tableau that this kind of softwares I'm not very sure, maybe you can check, but I know these are the few softwares that you can use, but Tableau is basically a visualization tool. I don't know whether it can give you the prescriptive results.
yeah. Again,
Maybe.
Deepak Chaudhary is asking: is it necessary to have a technical background for learning supply chain management?
See, technical background in the sense mathematics and engineering background will definitely help here. Being a person from mathematical background, things are very easy for me. And if you are engineer, things also will be easy for you. But in case you are not from these backgrounds, and still you can learn all this, but you should have interest. If you have interest, you can learn anything. We are not from computer science background. So basically, I'm not from computer science background, but I'm still learning artificial intelligence, machine learning, all this kind of stuff. Okay, it's not a big deal. So it's all commitment.
Okay, right, Misha, will close the question and answer session, and then
Okay, sir.
I'll be supplying an email ID. Your email ID, they will be asking you questions through email. Fine. Now I'll conclude. It's the time for conclusion. So, Pramod Kumar Mishra, you have given excellent insights to your supply chain analytics presentation, and I hope the participants have really got it through some the very basic concepts from prescriptive, descriptive, uh, and also predictive analytics. So these things you have already touched upon, and you have also given some key decisions in supply chain decisions, because ultimately this analytics should lead to decision making, effective and efficient decision making. And you also given different supply chain strategies like efficient supply chain and responsive supply chains. And then moved on to some of the assessment. How do you assess the uncertainty? That's also very important in supply chain analytics. When you are taking a data-driven solutions, it is very important. The uncertainties also you have to look at in the supply chain. So in the entire supply chain network, from suppliers to the customers, through production, logistics, manufacturing, inventory, purchasing, everything. So the data is tremendous. Then the analytics is very important to take the right decisions at the right time. So you have given some decisions: facility management, transportation decisions, make or buy. These are the areas the supply chain analytics is really important. And also you have done one use case also, IBM Sterling Inventory Control Tower. That's also very good use case study. And ultimately, you have touched about supply chain score model. That is one of the supply chain operations reference model, which is very important uh, to identify the supply chain metrics. You also given some of the metrics like cash to cash cycle, delivery performance metrics, flexibility and response, cost metrics, all these things. So how supply chains are going to perform. So through metrics only. The metrics means analytics. How do you measure the performance in terms of metrics? And the score model is a very established model across the world. and this is a very important analytics tool. And forecasting, you have also shown some of the techniques forecasting, and you have shown an Excel sheet how do you predict the forecasting of different form A, form B, form C, like that you have compared. And you have also seen machine-based learning prediction models and what are the practices, supply chain practices right now. And you have shown some analytics example through Excel. So these are all the things that are very important in supply chain analytics. So before I end this, so data-driven decisions, you have to ultimately, from the common sense point of view, foresight, insight, and predictions from the data. That's very important. How do you foresight, and how do you get the foresight from the data? How do you get the prediction from the data? How do you get the insights from the data? That is very important. And how do you proactively forecast and predict the events that are going to happen and make smart predictions about the future business conditions? That's very important. I think you have done a very good justification to supply chain analytics. Still, it is unlimited. So a lot of scope to learn, and it is a completely the ocean. The knowledge is ocean. You have to learn so many tools, at least, which are supporting analytics. For anybody to start with analytics, you can start with Excel. How to analyze the data. From there, you can move on to some other softwares and other application softwares. So this is how the supply chain analytics. I think I hope the participants have had a wonderful session today, and let us conclude the session today. Thank you. And tomorrow we'll be joining again at 6 o'clock on the trends in the logistics. Very important section for the industry. So that we'll wait for the session tomorrow. Thank you all. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Just a moment. Thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity, and I wish all the very best to all the participants. In case they are more interested in certain topics, we can probably keep it in future as a kind of a workshop mode, but certainly not a 1 hour session. So you'll get more insights out of it. Okay. So thank you very much, and good luck to everyone.
So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
So I'll be giving the PPTs in the WhatsApp group and then through mail also.
I'll send you the presentation and the Excel sheets. You please share with all of them, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.